Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we have how to play Dark Domains for you. This is a game from Mr. B Games and Laboratory H where it's a worker placement game and you are what the general public believe to be a benevolent ruler of your domain, but in fact you are working for a necromancer, and slowly as the game plays you start to reveal your true nature and start collecting evil, which however is going to attract the attention of adventuring heroes that are going to come and potentially wreak havoc in your domain. So we're going to get down to the table and we'll show you how this game works. First, I do want to mention our sponsor, Board Game Co. This is a great website that you can go to where you can buy, sell, and trade games. They have a great selection of games for you to buy from. You can sell games to them, and like I said, you can trade games over there as well. All kinds of ways to really get new games into your collection and old games out of your collection that you're not really interested in anymore, that just aren't making it to the table. Board Game Co. is a great website to buy, sell, and trade your way into a better collection. Okay, let's get down to the table. I'm going to show you how to play Dark Domains. To set up Dark Domains, first lay out the city board. Then place the phase tracker on the fortune space. Separate the fortune cards into 3 decks by the game era icon on the right side of the card: the Masquerade deck, the Revelation deck, and the Decay deck. Make sure to set aside the World card from the Revelation deck and the Death card from the Decay deck. Then shuffle each of these decks individually. Next, count 4 cards from the Decay deck. Add the Death card. Shuffle those 5 cards and set them aside into a deck. Make sure these are placed face down. Next, count 4 cards from the Revelation deck. Shuffle in the World card into those 4 cards. And set these 5 cards face down on top of the 5 Decay cards previously shuffled. Finally, count 5 Masquerade cards. No need to shuffle since this deck is already shuffled, and set these 5 cards down on the 10 cards you've previously drawn. Do not shuffle this 15 card deck. At this point, each player draws 1 random Master of the Domain card. If there is a pre-game advantage for your Master, take it now. The Master of the Domain cards are actually an optional variant, and players may choose as a group not to play with them. If there is ever a conflict between a Master card and the standard rules of play, the Master card always overrules it. Masters provide special effects either at the start of the game or during play. If it has a pre-game benefit, it is taken now, as previously mentioned. If it has an in-game benefit, treat it as if it were a henchman, and we'll cover henchmen a little later in this video. However, Masters may never be assassinated or removed from play. Each player now takes a domain board of their chosen color, 4 minions matching that color, and 8 coins. The player's 5th minion is set aside for the time being. Draw 4 adventurers from the top of the shuffled adventurer deck and place them from the leader space on to the right in the Green Unicorn Tavern first, and then the same in the Yellow Swan Tavern here. Throughout the game, the Green Unicorn Tavern will always be filled first prior to the Yellow Swan Tavern. Next, draw 2 cards from the shuffled henchman deck and place them face up in the Wayward Dragon Inn. And then 2 face down in the Farlands. Shuffle each spell deck in their individual types: production, control, defense, and attack. And then place these 4 decks in the 4 spell deck spots. Shuffle all buildings into a deck with the light side up. Draw 7 building cards and fill the 7 slots available in the Architects Guild. It's important to make sure that the light side is up for all the buildings. The top card of the building deck should always be visible to all players. Keep all remaining coins, evil, resources, and elements near the board in a supply for all players. Even if you don't have these super sick bowls, you can still just stack the coins and stuff up. Shuffle the monster tokens into face-down piles near the Nik'tmarg, making sure to first remove any monsters with this gold banner and gold border on the back. Then place 6 monsters face up in the spaces of the Nik'tmarg. Place the foreign mercenary on the space at the docks. Place the courtesan minion and the courtesan control token on the royal court. Finally, randomly determine the first player and give that person the first player marker. Then, in player order, each player draws 3 spells from whatever spell deck or decks they wish. And each player then takes 2 elements, which may be the same or different. The city board depicts the city of Harrows and is comprised of 17 distinct locations. Each location has 1 or more action spaces. When a minion is placed at a location, it must be placed on one of these available action spaces. During the resolution phase, these actions will be carried out, starting with the lowest number, all the way through eventually getting to the highest number. Spaces are also marked along the board edge to indicate where specific decks and cards go. The phase tracker will also be here, working its way down the phase track as each phase is completed. Each player takes a domain board representing their personal domain. Players may only place buildings, minions, and monsters belonging to them in their own domain. Each area on a domain board consists of either urban, forest, mountain, or plains terrain, and each area has 4 individual spaces within it. A space can hold 1 building card plus assorted monsters and tokens. All resources collected by a player are placed in their playing area near the domain board, and these are considered stored. Players must keep all items used in either their playing area or in their hand. Resources, elements, coins, and evil are represented by these tokens. When a token is spent or used, it is always returned to the public supply for future use in the game. Evil represents the player's descent into evil and chaos and is also a player's victory points. Coins and evil may never be hidden from other players. However, their full value does not have to be revealed either. Players may stack or pile them in any way they see fit in an effort to hide the total value if desired, but they must always still be in public view. Players are never required to reveal the full value of these items until the end of game scoring. On the other hand, resources and elements are common knowledge and must be revealed if asked. Discarding, paying, and spending anything in the game is always a transaction with the public supply unless specifically told to do so with a player. Every monster token has numbers and icons that apply to various functions. Most monsters have a black name band, as you see here. This means the monster is from the Nik'tmarg. These monsters may not be stacked with each other when in play. A few monsters have a yellow name bar like this one. This means the monster comes from a henchman or the docks and is able to be stacked with other monsters and or on light buildings. This is the monster's overall ranking. The monster's ranking determines which monster is most likely to be attacked by an adventurer with the monster icon. The higher the value, the more likely it is to draw the attention of the party. This is the monster's cost when purchased. If a monster does not have a coin value, then it may never be purchased. This is the monster's defense ability, which indicates how likely it is to survive attacks. Any icons in the lower left corner of the monster indicate what the monster produces during the production phase. Under a monster's name may be a bonus ability. Bonus abilities can be activated either by spending the indicated items or by the monster being placed in the specified terrain. Abilities requiring resources like this one are temporary and must be spent each time the player wants to strengthen a monster's defense value. However, these abilities may be activated multiple times per turn, adventure, or fight. Anytime it's necessary to determine the current turn order, the player currently with the first player token is always first, and then the turn order goes from there, clockwise. It's possible the current turn order will change multiple times throughout a round. If you're ever told to remove something from the game, it is returned to the box and will not be used for the remainder of the game. Oftentimes, the game will indicate that an adventurer needs to be replaced. When an adventurer is replaced, it is removed from the tavern and placed in the discard pile. All adventurers in that tavern are then moved one space to the left, and a new adventurer is drawn and placed in the rightmost space. When told to discard a card, it is placed in the appropriate discard pile for that card. Discards are always face up, and all discards must be revealed when discarded. However, once discarded, no one may look through the discard pile. Dark Domains uses D6s, 8s, 10s, and 12s. For the D10s, they range from 1 to 0, with 0 counting as a 10, not as a 0. All coins, elements, and resources in a player's play area are considered stored and may be targeted by effects that reference stored items. Henchmen and spells are never considered stored. Now let's discuss the gameplay as players work their way through the phases of play. The first phase is the Fortune Phase. This is a fortune card, and this is the symbol for the suit of the fortune card. Generally, the suit is also referenced in the name of the fortune card. In this case, the suit is Pentacles. Fortune cards in the game have 4 different possible suits: Pentacles, Cups, Wands, and Swords. There are also Arcana cards which are not considered one of the suits. This, of course, is the deck identifier which was used during setup. And you may remember there are 3 different deck identifiers. Suited cards have one consequence if paired with an Arcana card, and a second consequence if paired with any suit. However, Arcana cards only have a single consequence. When the Fortune Phase begins, players will turn the next 2 cards from the Fortune deck and place the first one here and the second one. If one of the revealed cards is the Death card, then discard the other one and only resolve Death. However, under normal circumstances, resolve both cards. The most important thing when resolving suited cards is to remember that if the suited card is paired with an Arcana card or a matching suited card, then resolve this first effect. And if it's paired with a different suit, then resolve the second effect. Also, the first card must always be fully resolved before moving to the second card. And the second card must be fully resolved before proceeding to the next game phase. Speaking of which, once the Fortune Phase is fully resolved, the second phase is the Preparation Phase. Some spells, henchmen, and even some buildings allow a player to perform an action in the Preparation Phase. If multiple players wish to resolve these, they do so in current turn order. After the Preparation Phase comes the Minion Phase. Players now alternate placing minions in current turn order. Minions may be placed on any empty action space in the city board. Minions may also be placed on any light building in the domain of the player controlling the minion. Continue the Minion Phase until all minions are placed, skipping any players that are out of minions on the current turn. A minion is always controlled by the player whose color matches the minion. After the minion phase is over, players enter the resolution phase. Minions are resolved in this phase in a strict order, and a player is never obligated to perform the action associated with the action space where the minion was placed. The player may instead opt to simply remove the minion from the board with no effect. After being resolved, a minion is always returned to its owner's play area. Now let's discuss the order minions are resolved and the benefits of each location. First, minions placed in the domains are resolved. Any minion placed on a light building in the player's domain will cause the building to be flipped to the dark side when it is resolved. Once the building has been flipped to the dark side, it may never be flipped back to the light side unless a specific ability causes this to happen. Also, a rule which was omitted from the original version of the rulebook, but has been confirmed by the designer, is that when a building is flipped to the dark side, in that moment, if there is a monster on an empty space, that monster may be moved to the building. This monster, of course, must be on an empty space in that player's domain. When resolving the Seer, the player may look at the top 3 cards of the fortune deck. The player may not actually show these cards to other players, but they may make any claims that they wish about what was seen. The player then returns those cards face down to the top of the deck in any order. For the business district, the player simply takes 2 coins. When resolving the Temple of the Black Kult, the player takes 2 evil. The Assassin's Guild and the Street Thug are both very similar in how they're resolved. In fact, they perform exactly the same task, but with a significant difference in quality. Using either space, the player may eliminate an adventurer and then immediately replace that adventurer, or the player may eliminate any henchman controlled by another player in the inn or in the far lands, and the henchman is not refilled. And as a third option, the player may remove a minion from the action space it currently occupies. The player who controls that minion may then place it on a different space that has not yet been resolved. Any minion removed from the Builders Guild in this way may be placed back in the Builders Guild, and so, in a way, is immune from assassination. If a player uses the Assassin, she pays 12 coins to guarantee success, and alternatively, she may substitute 2 coins for 1 evil as many times as she wishes. If the player, on the other hand, uses the Street Thug, she pays him 2 coins, and then must roll a d6. If she rolls a 1 or a 2, the action succeeds. However, on a 3 through 6, the action fails with no effect. At the Architects Guild, the player takes the building card associated with the action space where she's placed the meeple. These cards are placed in the player's play area and may be built later this turn or future turns during the Foreman Phase. A player is never required to build a building and may hold on to it for the entirety of the game if she wishes. Let's take a closer look at building cards. This symbol indicates the building type. This number below the building's name is the building rank. The higher this number, the more likely it will be attracting adventurers during the game. This is the defensive value of the building. This symbol indicates the building must be placed in a particular type of area. In this case, terrain type mountains. This is what the building will produce while it remains on the light side. And this lets the player know what the building will produce if it's flipped to the dark side. And at the bottom is what's required to build the building during the Foreman Phase. The Wayward Dragon Inn allows the player to take the henchman in the associated action space. That henchman is then placed face up in the player's playing area and is immediately available for use once the appropriate phase is entered. The Builders Guild space is purposefully overly large. This indicates it has an infinite amount of room for any number of minions from any number of players. When resolving this space, the players may purchase any number of resources. So for instance, a player could pay 3 coins and get 2 wood, 1 stone, and 2 workers. Or a player could pay 4 coins and get 1 metal and 2 wood, or any sort of combination. All players may resolve this space at the same time, since there is no limit to the number of resources in the game. If a resource runs out, players should just find a suitable substitute. All purchased resources and hired workers are placed in the player's play area and are immediately considered stored. The Tower of the Elements allows the player to take 2 of the indicated element. The acquired elements are taken to the player's play area and are stored. The Library of the Shadin Council allows the player to take 3 spell cards of her choice off the top of any spell decks. If a deck were to run out of spell cards, the player would shuffle the discarded spells to create a new draw pile. If there are no discards and no deck, then that type of spell may not be chosen. Either the Green Unicorn or the Yellow Swan Tavern allows the player to replace any number of adventurers associated with that tavern. The adventurer is discarded and replaced. Same with the other tavern. It's important to realize, though, that the leader may not be replaced. A minion at the docks allows the player to take the foreign mercenary. The player keeps the foreign mercenary until the end of turn phase. The player then places the mercenary on a light or dark building in her domain. The mercenary may also be placed on a building that contains monsters. When the building the mercenary is assigned to is attacked, it will defend by rolling a d10 and adding that value to the defense of the space. If the mercenary ends up defending multiple times, it will roll a die each time. The mercenary will then return to the docks during the end of turn phase. The Far Lands allow the player to take possession of the face-down henchman card next to the space used. This henchman card is then placed face up in the player's play area and is ready for use when the relevant phase is entered. Let's take this opportunity to take a closer look at the henchman cards. This is the phase in which the henchman card can be used. Here's the henchman's name and any effect that the henchman might have. If the henchman has this yellow bar at the bottom, it means it comes with the associated monster. At the Nik'tmarg, the player pays the indicated number of coins on the monster and then takes that monster into her domain. If the player cannot afford the monster or simply chooses not to take the monster, she can leave it where it is. Whatever monster is chosen, the player must immediately place that monster in the player's domain on either an empty dark building or an empty space. The Harrows Town Council allows the player to immediately take 2 coins, as well as the first player token. At the Royal Court, the player takes 2 coins, as well as this extra minion. To help remember who actually currently owns the extra minion, the player takes this token and places it in her play area. During the next round, when this minion is resolved, it is placed back on the Royal Court along with this token. During the Foreman Phase, all players may build any buildings from their play area provided they have the required resources. The light side of the building card shows what is required in order to build the card. In order to build, return these resources to the supply. Then the player places the building card light side up on any legal space in their domain. A legal space is a space that does not have another building already in it. The space also may not have a monster from the Nik'tmarg in it. The one exception to this rule is during the last turn of the game when buildings may be built dark side up. Once placed, a building may not be moved. Some buildings have restrictions as to which of the 4 areas they may or may not be played on, such as the mine, which must be played in the mountains. The scourge of the player's existence and the only barriers to their plans are the Tauren Company. These pesky do-gooders will seek out evil and try to eradicate it from the land. The success of the players hinges on both respecting and preparing for them. During the adventure phase, both parties will adventure. Each party chooses their target separately and adventures against them separately. It is possible that both parties may decide to adventure against the same or different spaces. It's also possible that the results of the first party's adventure will change the target of the second party. Adventuring consists of the following steps and should be completed in this exact order, starting with the Green Unicorn, followed by the Yellow Swan. First, determine the target for that party. The target is determined only by the leader of the party. We'll discuss targeting in detail in just a moment. After determining the target, all players may play spells and or henchmen. However, any spells or henchmen which would increase the defenses of the target building or space may only be played by the player whose domain is being attacked. After spells and henchmen have been played, the adventurers attack. To do this, gather dice for the adventurers. As you can see, sometimes you may need to roll a dice more than once. The owner of the targeted building must roll all 4 of these dice. If the roll is higher than the defense value of the target, the attack succeeds. So, if the roll was higher than 9 and this cavern was being attacked, the attack would succeed. If the roll was lower than or equal to the defense value of the target, then the adventurers have failed. Monsters with an expendable bonus bar action may now spend the proper items to try and overcome the attack. The defending player may utilize this bonus ability as many times as desired as long as she has enough of the proper items to spend. Players may also see the result of this ability before deciding whether or not to spend more items to use it again. Now let's discuss in detail how the adventuring parties choose their targets. As previously mentioned, only the leader of the group is used to select the target. At the bottom of the adventurer are 2 icons. Always check the left icon first. If the icon is an area, as you see here, then the adventurers will attack the highest ranked building in that area in any player's domain. In this case, forest. If the icon is a monster, as you see here, the adventurers attack the monster with the highest value for its ranking. For instance, the party will target number 64 before number 7. If the icon is an evil and production icon, the party will attack the single space among all domains that produces the most evil. If there is a tie, then the party will target spaces with buildings before spaces without buildings. And if still tied, use building rank and finally monster rank as the tiebreaker. Finally, if the icon is one of the building types, the party will target the highest ranked of that building type. The left icon is always checked first on the leader. See if any player has a dark side up building card matching that icon or in that area. If so, the building with the highest value is targeted. So if these were the available buildings, and let's assume they're all built in a forest, since that's what the druid is targeting, then this corrupted temple would be the target with a value of 195. If no target matches the left icon, repeat the process for the right icon. So let's say none of these dark buildings were in a forest, and this is the icon we're looking at now. Again, the corrupted temple will be targeted because it is the only religious building. If there are no matches for either icon, then go back to the left icon, but this time see if any player has a light side building that matches. If so, the adventurers will make a pilgrimage to that location and pay the owner 1 coin. If there is no match, repeat the process for the right icon. If there is still no match, the party simply does nothing at all. Once the target is determined, every token and building on the space is subject to the attack. If the monster somehow happens to be sharing a space with a light side building and that monster is a target, then that building will also be attacked. So let's discuss the aftermath of the 4 possible outcomes of the adventure phase. Now for this example, I have moved this domain onto the main board. Obviously it would not actually be there, but this is just for easier viewing purposes. If an adventurer's attack succeeds, do the following. Remove all tokens and buildings from the space. Buildings and monsters are not returned to the stock, but instead are removed completely from play. It's possible the controlling player may be able to save a monster through spells or other effects, and if so, it may be done at this time. Finally, the leader of the adventuring party is replaced. If, on the other hand, the attack failed, follow these steps. The attacked player receives 3 evil. The party's leader is removed. And then replace all other adventure party members that shared the icon that determined the target. So, if in this case, the religion icon had determined the target, then none of these adventurers would be replaced. If, on the other hand, this druid were here, then she would be replaced. After a failed attack, there should be 3 adventurers left when finished. If, on the other hand, the party makes a pilgrimage, follow these 2 steps. The player possessing the building where the pilgrimage occurs receives 1 coin, and then the party leader is replaced. If, on the other hand, the adventure party targeted nothing, then replace the party leader. During the production phase, players all simultaneously take the coins, elements, resources, and other items provided by their building cards, monster tokens, henchmen, and spells during this phase. Buildings produce items listed on the left side of the card, seen here. These items are placed in the player's play area. Everything during the production phase may be collected in any order the player wishes. Therefore, a player may collect elements, such as the earth from this earth elemental, before using that same element to cast a spell that will allow her to get resources, such as this forest path. Use the earth to gain 5 wood from the supply, and then take those resources and activate a henchman. Players should try to make the most efficient use of their production phase. The end of turn phase is mostly just a cleanup and special activity period. Before any of the cleanup occurs, all players utilize any desired end of turn actions. These actions must be completed before the actual cleanup. End of turn actions are also done in the current turn order. Once those actions have been carried out, then the board will be reset for the next turn, starting with discarding the 2 fortune cards that were in play. If any unavailable tokens have been placed on the board, these are removed at this time. Any henchman cards still in the inn are placed in the henchman discard pile. Any henchmen in the far lands are turned face up and moved to the inn. If for any reason this does not fill the inn up, then henchman cards from the top of the deck will be used to fill the inn. Henchman cards are also then added to the far lands, face down. Any empty slots in the Architects Guild are filled by drawing a card from the top of the building deck. If for some reason no buildings have been taken in the previous round, then all buildings would be removed. And then the Architects Guild would be refilled. Any vacancies in the taverns will be filled starting with the Green Unicorn Tavern and then moving to the Yellow Swan Tavern. If the mercenary was taken during this round, he would be replaced on the docks at this time. If any monster spaces are empty in the Nik'tmarg, fill them from the Nik'tmarg supply. And all players return any resources or elements in excess of 10 back to the stock. On the turn that death is drawn during the fortune phase, the game will end at the completion of the end of turn phase. At the end of the game, everyone totals their evil. The player with the most evil wins the game. In the event of a tie, the tied player with the most evil production wins. If there is still a tie, the tied player with the highest ranked building is the winner. Finally, let's take a closer look at spell cards. In the top left of the spell card, players will find the name and type of spell. In the top right is the timing icon and indicates which phase of play the spell may be played in. This is the effect of the spell. And at the bottom is the casting cost. When spells are cast, the player casting the spell must return the necessary items at the bottom of the card back to the stock. In this case, 1 evil and 3 earth. It's important to keep in mind that the following timing restrictions for spells have been put in place to prevent spell casting from becoming too chaotic. I'll briefly mention them here, but they can also be referenced on page 20 of the rulebook. Some spells must be cast before minions are placed, and these specifically will be cast during the preparation phase. Once all minions have been placed, but before resolution, all players have 1 opportunity to cast spells in turn order during the Minion Phase. During the adventuring phase, players may cast spells at 2 different times. Before the adventure has begun, the players may cast spells that affect the adventure party and other players in turn order. And once the adventurers attack, only the player being targeted may cast spells. During the production phase, no spells that may be cast during the production phase interact with other players, and therefore all players may cast simultaneously without fear of being disrupted by other players. No counterspells will occur during this phase. During the end of turn phase, players wishing to cast spells must do so before the board is reset. This must occur in turn order. A few spells have the ability to react to another player and must be played immediately at the time indicated, in this case, when a monster is killed. If a spell is countered, all of its effects are canceled. Counter spells may not be countered, and a player may wait to see the target of a spell before countering it. And that's everything you need to know to play Dark Domains. Now, I do want to point out that in the back of the rulebook, there are certain spells, henchmen, and buildings that are spelled out in more detail than you might find on the actual card. So be sure to reference that while you're playing the game. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you can get alerts whenever the next videos come out. And find me over on Twitter at BoredOffline. And until next time, if you're bored online,